3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Toe Meets Leather College Football Podcast. I'm Chris Wilhelm here in Thomasville, Georgia. I'm in my old bedroom, back at home. Good to see the family. I did have to pick weeds today and take them to the dump, so shout out Dad. Got some good hard work in today and sweated a lot, so fun times. That being said, we have a loaded show tonight. I've got plenty of reactions from Saturday night's games. Let's go ahead and dive in. Miami 41, Florida 17. Florida got out-scouted. There's no two ways about it. Well, let me just provide an example. So, second quarter, Cam Ward is at quarterback for Miami. They're about at their own 40. Devin Moore, a corner for Florida, is coming on a corner blitz, but he doesn't show it. He's just standing there, pressed up coverage on the corner, and Cam Ward calls it out, calls an audible. He points out Devin Moore, and Devin Moore, sure enough, comes on the blitz. He throws it out there to Xavier Restrepo. He knew what was coming. The only way you know that kind of stuff is if you scout the team's defense during the offseason or the week leading up to it. So Shannon Dawson got him prepared, and he even said that, Cam Ward said that after the game. He said, this is the most prepared I've ever felt in a college football game ever. So he outdid Florida's DC, knowing which coverages Florida was going to check to, and he used their aggressiveness later when they got desperate against them. So Florida's secondary is still undisciplined. My question about their discipline has been answered. A big part of that was Asa Turner went down early in the game for them. Veteran safety transferred out of Washington. He looked pretty good discipline-wise as far as assignment football from Florida early on. The linebackers really contributed to that. Grayson Howard, Shamar James, they were not letting anything get past them mentally. Any running backs out in the flats they followed. Just different stuff. It looked a little different early on. But they had some unfortunate penalties that really hurt them. First drive of the game when they had the roughing the passer. Another undisciplined play. Some say, maybe he wasn't there late, whatever. Regardless, it plagued Florida. It didn't plague Miami. And it's plagued Florida for a long time. So, and then, again, they had a roughing the passer going right before going into half, and that caused Miami to score a touchdown and go up 24-10. And Miami never looked back after that. Let's see. The Florida didn't attack enough one-on-ones on the outside with wide receivers and corners. They started off early. Graham Mertz looked good early because he threw a lot of one-on-ones. They attacked the corners because they were pressed up man, and it worked early on. And then they just went away from it. I don't really know what happened, but they stopped going to it. I didn't really see much coverage change as far as the corners goes, but that is one aspect that I wish that they had pursued more. Miami's DC created some great blitz packages, had Tyler Barron wreaking havoc on Florida's O-line. He's a transfer from Tennessee, really strong, really fast, tall guy. Francisco Mauigoa, yeah. Linebacker for Miami, really smart. Look out for him in the future. He's going to have a great year. Florida had no answer for the blitzing packages and the blitzing safeties. They had no safety over top of Trey Wilson a couple of times, and it was man on man, and they didn't take advantage of that. Graham Mertz, he looked really good on just on that drive right before he got hurt. So it wasn't really much to write home about for him, especially since he got hurt. But one or two bright spots for Florida here coming out of this game was their backup quarterback, freshman DJ Lagway. He looked great coming out and had the other touchdown, one of the two touchdowns. The other one was just Montrell Johnson on like a 70-yard touchdown. So DJ Lagway is looking promising, especially if Mertz, doesn't come back because he's still hurt. Not sure what his status is there. If you're a Florida fan here, you may be asking, why was our defense letting up so many passes in the middle? And you'd find me asking the same question. Florida was really committed to the run. I was actually surprised by how well they did rushing defense-wise. They didn't give up very much. except a couple plays and down in the red zone. But with the linebackers really committing to the run and the defensive line doing a great job on those run fits, they put their safeties way deep. So just in the middle of the field, there was this, plus 15 yards. There's this big gap where Cam Ward was just zipping it in, and he was making it look really easy. Cam Ward is a difference maker. We found that out tonight. Well, actually last night, and he's going to have a great year if he can stay healthy. His ability to scramble out of the pocket, but not for running purposes, just to open up passing lanes and get receivers open because he's extending the play and making the coverages break down because they're trying to last longer, is lethal. And if he can continue that, the sky's the limit for him. The one more thing before I read the stats. Miami's receiver core is, as stated, I mean, like they were, the hype was, what do you mean? What's the word? The hype was, confirmed. Whatever you want to call it. Number 7, Xavier Restrepo, remember his name. Also remember number 11, Sam Brown. Number 9, Lofton. He's a big guy who can still run really fast. It's kind of scary. Number 2, Horton. And I'm sure I'm leaving out somebody because they just have a slew of pass catchers there that are really good. Florida doesn't have much time to, fix the mental mistakes and heal up and get better. They have Sanford at home, and then they have Texas A&M coming to the Swamp. So they got to hurry up. Miami, they play FAU next week, so that should be a win for them. If I was a Miami fan, I'd be crossing my fingers. I'm not. Anyway. Graham Mertz, 11 for 20. He threw for 91 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Not great. Again, he might be hurt. I'm not sure. He took a big shot from, was it Barron? I think it was Barron. Anyway, DJ Lagway went 3 for 6, 31 yards, 1 interception. It was kind of, the defensive end came off the edge and batted it in the air. Nobody blocked him, so it didn't really seem like his fault. Rushing-wise, Florida had 139 yards, but as I said, they had that big chunk play with Montrell Johnson Jr. Cam Ward, though, went 26 for 35 with 385 passing yards. I mean, the Miami fan base is about to explode because they are probably back. I'm not confirming it, but, if I was a Miami fan, I'd say the U is back. Rushing-wise, they had 144 yards. And last thing I'm going to say before I move to the next game, Miami's defensive line is lethal. All right, next game, Georgia 34, Clemson 3. If you're Clemson and Dabo here, this is a really tough game that really stung because this was supposed to be pretty close. I mean, maybe not Clemson winning, but it was supposed to be closer than this. And, they did keep it 6-0 at half, so it was close for one half. But that's part of Kirby and UGA's signature win, the signature football, is that they break another team's will in the third quarter, mid to late third quarter, and they just run away with it. So they did their signature thing against Clemson. I will say Clemson's D-line is elite. I mean, the size, the speed is there. Peter Woods was, as expected, really good, making difference already. And the Clemson defense is pretty good, too. It's going to be their offense that limits them this year if they don't get it together. I mean, Garrett Riley had some good creative plays. I heard Booger McFarland criticizing the plays, but it was a lot of Cade Klubnik not finding the open receivers downfield, not finishing through his progressions, getting flustered. And then, And then in the second half, he didn't have enough time because Georgia was just dialing up blitzes and their defense was wreaking havoc on him. So Carson Beck is elite, we found out. He was really good last year too, but holy cow, he made some great anticipation throws. one that really stands out is Humphreys was on a dig route. The linebacker for Clemson was bailing towards the receiver that was running the dig route, but had his back to Carson Beck. So he's trying to cover the dig route, and there's a corner trying to cover him too. And Beck just zips it by the guy's ear, and Humphreys catches it, gets around him, and goes upfield. And I was like, oh my goodness, that was elite. Anyway, Mike Bobo, he had some really creative plays and really good schemes that I liked. A couple of motion and eye candy that got Clemson's linebackers lost, like on the Dominique Lovett pass in the flats. He also had I think it was like a tight end screen or something. I had a lot of plays that I liked that he was running. And Beck went 23 for 33 with 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Really good performance from him, especially for the first game of the year. I mean, regardless of who you are, you're going to have, most of the time you have a couple first game hiccups, or first game jitters, whatever you want to call them. So just 6 points in the first half. I mean, you knew they were going to explode when you saw, I mean, they were having big chunk plays. They just couldn't finish drives. Rushing yards, they had 169. Beck, I would like to mention, does have legs, and he can take off and gain a lot of yardage in a short amount of time. Some would say sneaky athletic. Really cliche term. But Klubnik, he was 18 for 29, 142 yards through the air, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Biggest stat line here for me was Clemson had 47 rushing yards. So that might have been like a padlock stat. Those that listen to Josh Payton know what I'm talking about. And one last thing I'd like to say is I loved KJ Bolden's aggressiveness. He came out as a freshman. He was not scared to make a tackle against anyone. He came out first drive and made a great tackle out in the flats. That set up for a third down, and then he made a big tackle on a tight end when they were in the red zone that a lot of safeties wouldn't make and wouldn't stick their head in there and hit and then still wrap up after you bounce off, because, I mean, that guy was big. So as a freshman, he was not afraid to make tackles. We have Zach Bryan special, as I call it now. Josh Pate, if you know him, he has something called a Sarah McLachlan special. It's, the arms of an angel. Anyway, so it's really sad. And so it's talking about like an offensive, not scoring drive, but results of each drive. So anyway, Clemson's is my Zach Bryan special because, Zach Bryan has sad songs. I mean, he has some other songs too, but a lot of sad songs and sentimental songs. So I'm going to read these off to you. All right. First half. Clemson, punt, 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 punt. In the first half. All right. Second half. Field goal, punt, punt, interception, turnover on downs. End of game. It's going to be a rough season if it keeps up that way. All right, next game. Georgia Tech 35, Georgia State 12. I watched this game. I was expecting Georgia Tech to maybe have a little bit of fall off from that high of playing Florida State. They had it was a little bit shaky on like the first drive, but other than that, they played Brent Key's style of football, and they weren't really skipping much of a beat there. Some big goal line stands for the defense. They gave a lot up early, almost like they weren't ready to play, and then they just stood them up on the goal line and had, I think, 2 or 3 goal line stands. Something I didn't mention last year, well, I might have, not last year, last week, the secondary tackling for Georgia Tech has been great, and it continued in this game, and it's going to become a strong suit of their team. A couple guys that really did well, Rodney Shelley, DB, Warren Burrell, transfer from Tennessee, a DB, and Amari Harvey, and that's just a couple of guys that had really good tackles. Kyle Eford, he made big news last week with his linebacker look, and he continued his good tackling and leadership this week. And something I didn't mention last week, I did mention the O-line, but I forgot to mention the tight end room looks a little bit different for Georgia Tech. And I think that's part of the reason why they were able to roll those Florida State defensive ends and linebackers out of there was you had these guys that looked a little bit bigger, like number 17, Josh Beetham, number 85, Jackson Hawes, number 86, Rylan Godey, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and number 9, Avery Boyd. He's kind of like a receiver / tight end build, but he's big and can run fast. But we learned that, or I saw that Georgia Tech is kind of limited on their offensive possessions with the way they run clock. They do a lot of motion stuff and eye candy, and so they only had 4 possessions in the first half. So if they're going to continue to limit their possessions in the games with the way they play, then they really need to clean up like mental bust and make every possession count. I did find out Georgia State's quarterback, Christian Valou, is supremely accurate and very poised, and it was fun to watch him because he had a lot of passes on the money, and he looked dangerous. Georgia State's roster in general looks pretty dangerous. Had a lot of guys from some Power 4 schools, and it's just loaded with talent. So that'll be interesting to see the rest of the season how they do. All right, we're going to add in Virginia Tech versus Vandy, although neither of the teams are the teams that I've mentioned we're going to cover all year. But this one was surprising because Virginia Tech was picked as a sleeper all offseason. They were said to have a very veteran defense and to have, Kyron Drones returning at quarterback, and that he was going to be really good, big dual threat guy. But Vandy won 34-27 in overtime. Now, Drones went 22 for 33 with 322 passing yards and 2 TDs and an interception. But a big note for me was he only had 19 yards rushing. So they really shut him down in that aspect and limited his dual threat ability. Whereas on the other side, Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt, he transferred in from New Mexico State, and he is really exciting to watch. He's an improviser, and so it's fun to watch. And he went 12 for 16, 190 yards with 2 TDs, but he had 104 rushing yards. So big difference there. He was the dual threat quarterback here. Virginia Tech only had 75 rushing yards, and Vandy had 181. So sleeper Vandy for the SEC title? No, I'm just kidding. But Vandy does look a lot better this year under Clark Leah. And Virginia Tech, if they can turn it around, maybe they can contend for the ACC. I'm not quite sure. And but yeah, so that was the surprising result of this week. Alabama 63, Western Kentucky 0. Jalen Milroe looked really lethal. I know it was Western Kentucky, but he looked great. He went 7 for 9, 200 passing yards, 3 TDs, 0 interceptions. He only had 79 rushing yards, but he wasn't in long. And he didn't need to use his legs. Yeah, he had all the time in the world to throw to guys like Ryan Williams, true freshman, number 2 for them, I'm pretty sure. And he is only 17 years old. And listen to the stat line. 2 receptions for 139 yards. And they were both touchdowns. That's an average of 69.5 yards per catch. So he is fast and will be fun to watch coming up this season. So Ty Simpson also got some work. Heard a lot of good things about him out of fall camp. He went 5 for 9, had 66 yards. So bright upside once Jalen Milroe leaves. And DeBoer looks like he's just going to keep chugging that Alabama train. Auburn beat Alabama A&M 73-3. And when I first saw that score, I made sure to check the box score to see what Peyton Thorne did, because ultimately that's kind of limited their offense in the past couple of years, as they don't really have an elite QB. But Peyton Thorne may have something to say about it this year, and this may be his breakout year. He went 13 for 21 with 322 yards in the air, 4 TDs, and 0 interceptions. So if he can become that guy, Auburn has a I mean, they have a pretty good roster, and they've been recruiting well, that this can go well for them this season, and Hugh Freeze can keep building. Auburn rushed for 177 yards, and I know it's just Alabama and A&M, but it's looking good so far. LSU and USC are playing as we speak, and I'll review that game on Friday. We'll see what record-wise what I go for on my predictions. So far, I'm 2-1 in the big game predictions, and 5-1 if you count like Alabama and Auburn. And so if FSU beats Boston College and LSU beats USC, I'll be 7-1 in overall, and so I'll have a pretty good weekend. Just a reminder, FSU and Boston College play Monday night at 7:30 on ESPN. Speaking of ESPN, they are in like a stalemate with DirecTV on their contract. So I'm not getting ESPN right now, which really stinks, and it's all because of greedy TV executives. And I have a hunch that part of the reason why is because ESPN signed that deal with SEC for $3 billion. So they're giving the SEC $3 billion for their product on the field, to air their product. And so they probably need more from the people that are distributing ESPN, like DirecTV. And so that's why they can't come to an agreement right now. And so basically TV executives stink, and they're ruining some parts of college football and changing things like like rules, and it's just really crappy, because this shouldn't be what influences college football and the rules. And especially in the beginning of the college football season, a lot of people are going to be losing ESPN if they don't, if the two don't come together and make a deal. That's it for tonight's video. Friday will be more predictions and review of that LSU-USC game. Please like the video and comment, but please subscribe, because right now I have a lot of views on that first video, but I only have like 18 subscribers. I have like 40 something views on the video, something like that, but we really need subscribers. If I get to 50 subscribers, then I can go live, which will help a lot. So please subscribe. I'll see y'all Friday. Y'all have a good one. Peace.